everybody, we'll start the meeting with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start, number one, approve the agenda. I've got some things to change or add here, so I'd like to move M7 from correspondence, that's the annual DER rates, policy, rules, resolution rule. It's an annual thing that's boilerplate that has to be done. We're just gonna move that to the consent agenda. And I'd like to add under the mayor's report, number one, a budget discussion. Anybody else have anything? Tim, anything else?
No, I don't have anything else.
No? Right?
No.
No.
Is there
I'm gonna, so under the attorney, you wanna add a closed session for litigation? So we'll add L1, attorney's report, closed session for litigation update on,
Wilker?
Okay.
The Wilker litigation.
okay. Anything else? You good, Brandon?
Yep.
Okay, all right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as changed.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lonnie, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Dwayne, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number two, the consent agenda, we have the consent agenda, which is in the packets, along with M7 that was moved there with our change. Any questions for the administrator on the consent agenda? Entertain a motion to approve. Thanks, Mel, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Visitors, Mr. Mike Kubani.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on the agenda. I apologize. I think a month ago, staff presented to you an opportunity for another refunding. The last time I was here, we did a taxable advanced refunding associated with your TIF bonds. I'm here tonight to talk to you about possible refunding for the swimming pool bonds that were issued in 2013. The recommendations I had submitted for staff to present a month ago was to pursue a bank placement utilizing Minnesota Rural Water Association's loan program. The reason that program is so useful is, number one, is they have a group of pre-selected banks that allows us to avoid a broker, which reduces costs, and they also have reduced fees just generally as part of the program as well. In your packets, you should have a 3-page bond report.
Is everybody a copy of that? You should have paper
Great.
copies of it.
Just briefly take you through it. The first page is simply bond details. If this is awarded tonight, we would close on May 25th and pay off the old bonds, and the new bonds would not be prepayable again, so you're making a promise not to prepay these new bonds until August 1st of 2025. Not sure that you would, but you won't be able to until that point. The second page is basically a payment schedule and cash flow showing you the new tax levies that will be required to cover the payments. The most interesting piece that I think you'll be interested in is the third page, which shows the savings. Over on the left, the bottom left, you'll see the prior bonds. Those would be the payments you'd be making if you did nothing. And you'll notice there's a column there that says pay agent fees. Currently, you're paying annual pay agent fees $450. It could actually be more than that. Nancy, do you pay more than $450 a year?
Or $495.
$495 is more typical, but I went with $450, so I might be understating the savings. Minnesota Rural Water Association, there are no annual pay agent fees. So over on the right, the gross savings are over $53,000 in present value terms. That'd be like saving $49,000 today. As a separate exhibit, you should have received just sort of a one-page side-by-side where I compared this to what if we had done a public sale, you know, go get a credit rating, see what kind of interest rates we could get. Interest rates would be lower, but the issuance costs are so much higher. There was a lot of uncertainty in that. in these times, I'm not all that confident in Standard & Poor's providing you just sort of a run-of-the-mill rating, because, you know, economy is poor and so forth. I've seen, Plainview, for instance, recently had a downgrade. That could happen here too. I don't know, all right? Also, the public markets have been hinky. So anecdotally, I'll give you a story. I went into Spring Grove, they were gonna do a little over $1 million for a water tower project, and my recommendation there, I went in with a letter and sheets like this, and I said, let's go get a rating, let's do a competitive sale. The day I was going, that afternoon, I looked at bond sales and what was happening in the public markets, and the rates were just crazy. So I quick contacted the banks at Minnesota Rural Water Association and said, can you quickly give me an indicative rate? And I went to Spring Grove and said, I'm gonna tell you something you've never heard a consultant say, and that is to throw my recommendations in the trash. We need to revise our strategy, because the public markets are wonky. And what's funny is, the weekend prior, the Fed had indicated they were gonna do another cut. So I thought rates would be even better going into the next week, and they went the opposite direction. Anybody that tried to do a refi in their mortgage might have saw the same thing happen. Anyway, so what this reflects is a bond sale from Monday. On the left-hand side is a hypothetical public sale. City of Hermantown, AA credit rating, you're a AA minus. So technically, you might get an interest rate a little bit higher than what's shown here. And furthermore, I spoke to a trading desk in the last day that said the purchaser that bought the Hermantown bonds, those bonds are sitting in their inventory, meaning they bought them lump sum at these interest rates with the idea that they were gonna turn around and resell them on retail to all their little customers, and they're not able to sell them.
Someone's buying them.
Exactly, yep. So my point is if that Hermantown deal bid out again today, they probably wouldn't get those rates. So when I'm showing you that this rural water deal outperformed a public sale, I think it outperforms it better than what I'm showing you.
How does our debt profile compare with Plainview, just so you brought that up? I mean, obviously it's smaller.
Yeah,
Different type
your
of
debt
tax rate.
ratios are gonna be a little, no, it's actually not that bad.
Okay.
What you have better than Plainview is probably a better local economy,
Sure.
more than anything else.
Okay.
So, Plainview did have, they did get dinged a little bit on a reduction in their fund balances, because their general fund looked great, but they had a bunch of, minor funds that were in the negative.
Oh, sure, they were subsidizing, yeah. Okay.
So, but they also said, the weak economy played a big
Yeah.
role.
So, dairy out there is almost bad.
So, you know, Casson might have maintained, I don't know. The other thing is that you don't just get a credit rating, they also give an outlook, like they'll say, oh, it's stable or it's negative. And I sat in on a 2-hour, online thing with Standard & Poor's, and they're looking at each city individually, but as a sector, the municipal market is basically has a negative outlook as a sector. And so all of that, I think, is putting pressure. And every bank placement I've done so far in the last few weeks, and I've done more in these than I think I've done in years. Houston, Spring Grove, Harmony, Wyckoff. I just secured a deal for Pine Island this morning. There's more than that. I'm drawing a blank. They all outperformed through the bank placement. So, you know, you probably understood this the first 2 seconds, and I felt the need to keep kicking this dead horse. But I think it's a good deal for you to consider. So, I don't know, I stop there and take questions.
Perfect. Any questions for Mike?
So the total savings was 53,152?
Yeah, and it's actually a little higher than that if you're truly paying $495 a year, but, yeah.
So another,
Yeah.
54, say. Oh, that's great.
So the annual savings, in terms of your budget, you're saving about $6,000 a year, which in Casson terms isn't, it's not as big money, but I mean, every bit helps, yeah.
0.2%. Just happen to know that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mike at all? No, it looks good, Mike, appreciate the information, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, do a second.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Wayne, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Safe
guys.
flight home.
Stay safe.
You too, thank you. Okay, on to the mayor's report. So, first off, just wanted to extend to staff, thank you for all the stuff that's going on here lately that's, unprecedented and uncertain. Tim coming in brand new to be the city administrator, I'm sure didn't think that his first 90 days on the job would be, shutting everything down. So thanks for leadership on that and with, the rest of the staff, Nancy.
We've got a great staff, that really
Yeah.
helps. And I'd say the staff overall are feeling pretty good. You know, they're doing a good job, and I think they understand where we're at, so that's
Yep.
positive.
And EMS is doing good. I talked to her, been texting Joe a little bit, and just everybody in town too. It seems like everybody's frustrated, obviously. I mean, who likes to be told they have to close their business or can't go anywhere, can't hang out with their neighbor or whatever it is. But I think for the most part, everybody's buying into that. We're doing our part. I think it's gonna get more frustrating as we see days like today, when it's 70 degrees and you tell me I can't go to my neighbor's fire ring when it was snowing 2 weeks ago. Okay, you know, I'm pretty good. So it's gonna get more frustrating for people, so just hope everybody has patience and hopefully we can get this thing cranked up sooner than later. And then all of our local retailers are still working to get everything, out to us, you know, the people at Urban's, Harbor Hank, liquor store, the places that are still open, gas stations. I know the young kids at Urban's, I'll tell you, if you go through Urban's, make sure you tell the kids that are bagging your groceries, and at the cashiers, I was there when one was just getting pummeled by somebody because something was out, just getting verbally abused. And, kid took it like a champ and just said thank you and hope you come back someday, you know. What else are they supposed to say? It's not their fault, they're out toilet paper, you know, so. You see the kids tell them thank you, I think they really appreciate it, 'cause they're trying their hardest too. I've had a lot of questions lately about summer activities, and I know Dan's gonna get a little bit of that in the park board update, and I've been emailing with, Tim a little bit back and forth about festival and some different things. Right now, we don't know, I don't wanna be jumping the gun and canceling an August event yet, but it is what it is. We'll have to probably make a decision at some point. I know the committee's been talking about it as far as the festival goes. We'll have to make some decisions in May of altering things, 'cause a lot of stuff has to be paid for now. And, you know, you don't wanna go prepay for things when it could get canceled. The other side of it too is most of it's fundraising. So, how do you go to a bunch of businesses that have been forced to close and say, hey, you wanna donate your $150 this year? We just aren't comfortable going asking people that, so.
They're not open, yeah.
It may be a different type of festival or no festival, who knows right now? So if you hear anything from anybody council-wise, nobody knows. We may not even have the choice at some point, so, and then if we decide to cancel that, or if the city decides to not go through with it, if we're told we can't do it, then we could allocate that funding that the city has for the festival elsewhere within the city to be used. Just a reminder to people to spread the word. People asked to complete the census. I know we had some pretty good numbers at first. We were
Yeah, I
up
think
there
we were
pretty high.
just about leading the state actually down here, so.
So just to have people do that. And then I'm always reading and watching news. I emailed Tim today with a company called BioBot. So we're gonna send in some samples from our wastewater, and they're actually able to tell the level of COVID in the stools, what you flush down the toilet.
I get all kinds of emails.
Led by a group from MIT, who just got about $7.6 million in funding. So they actually are, in Boston, they've done that, and it's not specific to individuals, but at least it tells you if it's in the system. So, it's we'll send some samples in for their research project, and we'll see how toxic we are. Maybe we'll come back with other things too, we don't wanna know.
I hope not.
And then, what I really wanna talk about too, in there was the budget. We had our work session beforehand. I think just as a council, I mean, staff's been doing a great job of, I know we've seen the communications, the department heads, that if it doesn't need to be spent, we're not spending it. So even though there were things budgeted, I think all the department heads are buying into that also, that things are different than they were in December when we passed the budget. So circumstances have changed. So I would just like to make a motion that we give back up to the city administrator, Nancy, the people controlling this stuff with the department, that we're basically asking them to, if it doesn't need to be spent, we're not spending it. And that we've got their backs on that, so if we have any pushback from department heads individually, that we collectively, are asking that to be done. So I would make that motion that we give, back up to them to do that.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Lonnie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So you guys are already doing a great job doing that, but just something that you got it's not a question, it's not a, oh, what if? If we don't need it, we're not buying it.
Well, there are a couple things just to highlight, and I do have them on my report already, but as long as we're talking about it, I just, a couple of big things, and some of it's even later in the meeting, we can talk about it some more, but the ice arena, that's one that I've communicated with the council, and the ice arena board met, you know, and we are looking, right now, we are planning on being closed until further notice, based on the fact that there's no usage at all. You know, and we know that a lot of times there has been some loss there. So, you know, the county board communicated with, you know, the members here communicated with me, and we talked about it, and Steve Powers was there, and he understands completely. But so, we're trying to eliminate that as a potential loss. So until the governor makes it available for use again, which, and we don't know exactly how that will go too, because, you know, is opening for just 10 people necessarily, keeping it open when only 10 people can be there?
Right.
You know, that may not even be realistic either. You know, when I talked with the county, you know, we looked at last year's revenue and expenditures, and, you know, if we kept it open, you could be looking at a very substantial loss, because you won't have the revenue. So, you know, it took them 2 days, they shut it down last week, got the ice out of it on Friday, you know, and we've been, I've shifted, you know, Mr. Howarth over into working with the Parks Department, for now, and I did tell him, you know, potentially, if, man hours become a problem, you know, he really wants to keep working, which I completely understand. And I don't think we're at a point yet where I really wanna look at furloughing people, but he understands it may come to that. You know, the nice thing about it is that, we do have we'll have some extra man hours to patch the streets. So it sounded like last year with the flooding, it really fell behind. You know, and so that's something that I said, you know what, it's pretty cheap, you know, bituminous, the hot mix and stuff, it's gonna be cheaper because of the oil prices. You know, at least it should be, if somebody isn't gouging us a little bit. They can do a lot of work with that. Most of the trees, I mean, if you've seen Main Street the last couple of days, I'm going way into all kinds of stuff, but most of the trees are done. We're pretty well caught up, so a lot, depending on what Park and Rec ends up doing, you know, and you're gonna mention that too, depending on what happens there, we may shift a lot of the staff into patching streets. You know, and until they're done with that, which that's never done, we'll have work for them to do, which is my goal, because I don't want people sitting around. Obviously, that's not worthwhile. You know, they're gonna have to be doing stuff. We continue to be busy during that interim break where street sweeping all got done, the regular work was done, so I mean, those are good things. Another thing I do have in that report too is, something just to note, talking a lot about we had authorized a position in the street department, with last year's budget, and, you know, I've talked with you know, with department heads with Charlie. I believe at this time, there's no justification for creating the additional opening. We had advertised it internally, we did have 3 applicants, but Charlie and I didn't do any interviews, and so I pulled it back. I said, for right now, I just don't see a reason, and as part of our union contract, you know, it's our ability, even if we've listed it, if we say there's no justification, which I think could easily be made, you know, I don't think there should be any rebuttal from a union on this, because it's a simple truth. If we don't need the I don't wanna hire somebody just to furlough them next week, that's stupid. You know, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and I haven't heard anything from the staff as a whole. You know, we will revisit that when this is stabilized, probably in the fall, you know, seeing how it looks, but, so I've got that there. I also think that a hiring freeze right now would be, a really good move. You know, I think our last employee that we did hire was in the library department, and I expect her to start on May 4th now, so we've even pushed that. Pat has advised me that she feels comfortable with pushing it back to the 4th. I think after that, for right now, I don't expect there to be any other hirings. I don't expect there to be any part-time hirings unless, you know, we do have a aquatic center that's open. In that case, the Park and Rec Board will give us a recommendation of what they feel like the appropriate hirings are. It may not be full staff, especially if we have a late start, which is very possible. So, I mean, I think those are a couple of appropriate things to do, and then, like, you know, you mentioned Nancy, and we've talked about, you know, we've told them no big items, you know, so we're not looking at any items over $10,000. And those items that are $10,000 still have to be, you know, very well justified. It has to be something that needs to be used, that it's a need, not a want. You know, so even the mower, we talked about maybe just leasing a mower. And when I costed it out with Charlie, it looks like it's still a better purchase for us as opposed to leasing it. Just because it's, you know, if we can get 10 years out of a purchase mower, it's gonna cost half of what a lease mower does. So, we're looking at all those options, it's not just a blank check, you know, because I definitely wanna respect the taxpayers' dollars, so, anyways, sorry about that.
No, perfect,
So
absolutely.
for a clear understanding of operations, any purchases are going through a second or third level review?
Absolutely, yeah, I've told all the department heads, and they've been very good about it. In fact, Dave was in today to talk about some sewer pump items. You know, wherever we can reuse items, for example, they wanna put a pump back together again, they're gonna try and reuse some of the barrels from one of the ones the pump number 3 that's shot. So they're gonna take those parts and they're gonna patch it in, and they won't have to buy all of them new then. which I think is really smart. He's great about this stuff, because he's been with the city a long time, he knows what they can do, what they used to do without some of the things they have now. You know, I think sometimes people get a little bit comfortable with, oh, we'll just get a new, that's not how it works. Same thing's true with staff here at City Hall. I mean, I know we'd like to upgrade some of our facilities here as well. This isn't the year for that, right, you know, and we have other options as well, you know, so no, I think so far everybody's really good, and I appreciate the support, because we're gonna have to say no.
Yep.
I mean, we start going through the budgets, and they're gonna be like, well, no, not this year, it just isn't gonna happen. You know, and some of these things we can look at utilizing debt service in the future for, potentially, you know, move some of those payments down, you know, kick the can, I guess, because some things are gonna break down, and it's difficult. We've already looked at possibly, you know, purchasing used equipment more so than we have in the past. I think some of the things you guys did with the budget process last year with the police department were prudent, but anyways, so, I'm sorry, I'm kind of taking this over.
No, perfect, that's exactly what we're looking for, I think it's like get back to the basics. You can drive on it, flush it, or turn the switch on. We need to maintain those services for people, and other than that, we have to really decide if it's
Prudent or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. That's all I've got there, so no public hearing, any public forum, no cards turned in. Committee report, Blaine's 14th preliminary plat.
I think we'll move that, or
We'll just-
we'll defer that till next
There's no
meeting, but we will get
conversation.
those items we discussed to you in the next, I don't know, 5 or 6 days, so.
Okay. Number 2, resolution approving a conditional use permit to allow for continued operations at Wilker property.
So I think, Mr. Mayor, if you go like, we can move that resolution until after we finish the discussion with the closed discussion. That would make sense to me.
Okay. Park board update, Dan.
So, last night we had a park board meeting, and there was quite a bit of discussion about the pool, the aquatic center. The park board has made a recommendation to the council, it's just merely a recommendation.
In case you forget anything.
Okay. And, if we can open the pool, if the state gives us permission, if we can abide by all the rules to do it, we'd like to, but we picked a date that it cannot open after July 15th. Because.
July 15th?
Yep. Because Ronnie said, if we can wait July, that means we'd have to know before, 2 weeks before, to get it filled, because we're not gonna fill it, we're not gonna do nothing. But that would give us still enough time to make at least citizens, you know, access to the pool is our goal is. You know, we know it's a service, we know there's a lot, but we can look at cutting back staff. If we cut back the number of people that are allowed in, if that's what the state does, we can cut back the staff. So but that's just a recommendation from the park board, because the park board would really love to open it, just because they know that everybody in town looks forward to it. So that was, the whole.
Can I ask a question? So when does it close, like August 20th, September
We're
1st?
the very end of August this year, he's saying, because the Labor Day was pushed out.
Okay.
And they're saying some of the college kids, it depends on school starts, they're kind of pushing that, so they think some of them will stay longer
Okay.
to help. And they also think there'll be fewer athletic camps, so there'll be more availability of staff, so we could keep it open to the very latest amount. We would like to keep it all the way open almost to Labor Day. That's the goal.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's gonna be we kinda left it to Charlie, or to Ronnie, to let us know, but it's a day-to-day basis, we don't know. Nobody knows,
You may not have a choice. So you recommended the council from park board is that we set a date to open up no later than July 15th?
If we're allowed to, by the powers to be.
State or health.
Yep, because we asked what it cost just to open it, it's between $20,000 and $25,000. And that's why we wanted to have it open for at least 6 weeks.
So I was surprised that it was that late that was.
Yep,
Okay.
because we figured we can still offset enough of that cost to make it viable.
Okay.
We talked about a number of concepts too.
Yes.
Possibly, there may be some other things coming to it. If we can't open it, we may still try to do like a city park day or something where we'd make stuff as available as possible, because we just know that they really brought up a point about the community psyche. I mean, this may be kind of a rough summer for the families in town, and if there's anything we can do, we wanna try and do it. But they're also, you know, they understand, you know, if you looked at the Nancy's, you know, swimming pool last year, you know, that showed about a $60,000 loss, which it's a service, and we know that, so we don't expect to make a profit, but, you know, every day it's not open will be even less profit potentially, so.
Okay, do we need to vote on that, or that's just?
I think right now, we're still planning on having another meeting in May.
Yeah, well-
At that meeting, we're hoping that we have more guidance from the state.
So, that was that, kinda like softball, right now, we're waiting on state on that. But I had asked Ronnie if there was any way we could not be working on the fields. He said, no, we have to keep raking them if there's a possibility they can open them, otherwise it clumps up and then it's even far. And he said they have to mow them, but they're gonna try to fertilize less and try to mow a little less if they can, but they still have to mow it, otherwise, if you let it grow and then mow it, now you're out bagging it and,
It'll go to seed.
yeah, and then you have a bigger problem. But they're gonna try to cut as many costs as they can.
We're gonna work on Ronnie on that a little bit too.
Yes.
We aren't gonna line it. If there isn't any league, we're not gonna line it.
We're gonna
So
not
there'll
line
be
it,
some
and we're
savings
not gonna
costs.
put any
We're
bases
also-
out.
That's right, yep.
So that if people still go out and use it, there's, you know, as a citizen goes out and hits a ball, they hit a ball, then, you know, it's an open park, but we're not putting any bases out, we wanna,
Okay.
There's kids out there every day playing.
Yeah.
hockey.
I think it's great. It's just we don't wanna necessarily be the ones
Right.
showing that we're encouraging that.
Right.
we're.
Until we can. And then we're gonna encourage as much as we can. So it's gonna flip.
We're gonna let back to the aquatic center, we're gonna let any potential employees know that, you know, if you get another job offer, feel free to take it, don't wait on us, 'cause we don't know. You know, if you wanna go somewhere else, please do, and we'll work with them. And then next year, if they wanna apply again, we'll gladly let them apply again, and if they interviewed this year, they won't have to interview next year, and so we're hoping, worst case scenario, at least we'll have them next year. And then this year, we had talked of buying software and taking pictures of everybody for passes. We're putting that completely on hold, that's nothing we're gonna do. We'll look at it again next year if it's something we need to, 'cause that's a expense that we don't wanna do. And if the pool cannot open by the normal, what do we say, the middle of May, if we don't know we're open, we're gonna refund everybody's seasonal pass, we have never cashed them, and then go to day pass only if it does open. And then look at seasonal passes again next year. 'Cause, so people get their,
Right, we can't justify it. They lose half of the season and keep
yeah,
it. Don't.
and we don't wanna refund, so we just wanna give it back, we haven't cashed them.
Okay.
I think that was about all we had from,
That was the bulk of it.
yeah.
Okay, and then as far as the park board goes, I know we had some date in mind back in January, we talked about this repair of the wall and all
Oh,
that.
sure.
We're
Yeah.
assuming that that's just kinda be put on hold for now and.
So Saturday, I got a call, and I met with one of the contractors that, he came back from England, he got out of quarantine, and he is putting together a proposal right now, and then I talked with John Olive from Mandeville Restoration, and I said, you know, this all still has to go through the park board, all has to go through council. I said, the times right now, this would have to almost be 100% donation right now, but, so they talked about donating limestone, and this guy was gonna get back to us with a price, we haven't seen nothing yet, but we're waiting on that, but.
Alright. Good, thank you. Old business liquor license proration.
So we had talked about that a little bit at the previous council meeting, and you kind of had asked us to game plan on it. I think what we came up with, was potentially, basically prorating for next year, which would be that we wouldn't go through refunding or anything like this year, but then into next year, we would reduce that by 2 months or however long this shutdown lasts.
Once we know what the.
Just because, I guess it's less checks for us to cut. Conceptually, it could work better for us. However, you know, we could certainly change that if that's not what the council's interested in.
Well, we really don't know how much to prorate yet, till.
That's the other thing.
we
It's like,
can-
I don't really know how to do, you know,
Once
until we
they're
know
allowed
it's
to open,
done,
yeah.
then we could at that time, but
Right.
it might just be easier for next year if we say, okay, we're taking 3 months off of your costs this year.
Yeah.
Plus, for us, in terms of cash flows, if we can, I guess if we can retain the cash now, it may be easier next year to say, okay, we can cut these checks back.
Okay. Thank you. H, new business, ice arena.
Well, I talked a little bit about that, already. In essence, you've got the agreement that we've signed with the county, and then the budget. So you can see kind of where they had some loss last year. They had some higher maintenance costs, last year. So, in essence, what I'm looking for would be, support for the concept of terminating operations there until we have a proper way of introducing, use again.
Absolutely. And then as far as, I know Nancy, you brought up during the, work session about the, $8,500 fee that we paid to the fair board, that agreement we had to leave the ice in. That was kind of our negotiated deal. If there is no fair, there's no ice in the arena, I think we'll have to be able to approach them. I think we'd have good standing to say that we're not going to pay you. So, I think that's the approach I would.
Kim will take care of that.
Yeah, I think that would be the, yeah, we're gonna let, you're the new guy, you can
Well,
take care of that one.
well, it's all right. I mean, I think, they have to be reasonable. If the fair still occurs, then it's hard to do that, but if they're not gonna have the
Right,
festival this year.
if the
then
fair, so it's
it
play
seems-
by ear.
Yeah, well, in the long run, it is what it is. They have to understand that too.
Yep.
Nancy, is the revenue that's depicted here, are we sure that represents everything that came into the ice arena last year?
Last year? Yeah, but, so we ended the year with some accounts receivable, because December gets pretty busy. So we still had to recognize that revenue, but as it turns out, we did have one vendor who has an NSF that we will be working to collect.
Thank you.
Okay, request from the American Legion.
So this is an item that you forwarded to me, Mr. Mayor, and it's, it's up to the council what they'd like to do with it. It's not just the American Legion. I think they're asking perhaps for a greater number than that, but I think it might be better to handle this on a case-by-case basis. To me, I don't know that blanket ordinance or blanket, resolution or something of that nature would make sense. But if anyone has questions on that, I'd certainly be glad to go through with them.
Yeah, and I think what their intent is there is that when a bar or restaurant is gonna be able to reopen, I think they're anticipating that it's gonna be different. Their occupancy inside and their tables so close together and how they have everything, the stools are gonna be spread out. They're asking basically, can they rope off or, like they do for special events, put the fence out so they can use some of the parking lot to have some picnic tables and that spread out further apart so they can still get the same number of people there, but everybody's spaced out. And I think we can, as a council, we can work with that on a case-by-case basis because it is different than before, as long as somebody has a way to control it. I think the biggest challenge that the restaurants and bars are gonna face is, that's great, and it's gonna be beyond our control of what happens. Great to spread everybody out. I don't think the city's gonna have a problem giving them the extra space for their liquor permit type thing to do that, but it's gonna be your bathroom situation. It's gonna be how do bars and restaurants control
Separation, sure.
the common, the thing that everybody uses. So whether you have 30 people, 60 people, or 90 people, if you just still have the men's room and the women's room, and people are using it, that's where the challenge is gonna be with the restaurants and bars, I think, when they do get the permission to reopen, is how are you gonna police that? How's it gonna be cleaned? How often? So I think I agree with Tim. I forwarded this to you. We just look at it once they can open on a case-by-case basis and give you the authority to.
Well, I mean, some of them it's gonna work for some of them, like the Legion, for example, what I kind of envisioned is that front, what's paved, in front of that.
Sure.
We can put snow fencing out there if they wanna put tables out or something and spread everything out. Some of them, for example, like the bar on Main Street, they're not gonna really do it, and that's fine. So some of them will ask, some of them won't.
Yep.
And then each one, I think the questions you brought up, how are you gonna deal with the bathrooms, how are you gonna deal with the cleanliness, that sort of thing, those are questions we would have to get answers from them. But, I mean, we can develop a permit. I even have been working on a special event permit, which we could utilize for this too, that has all the explanations, that has all the contact information. I think that instead of doing an ordinance, I don't know that seems necessary.
Yeah, I was just, this is a unique situation. They just get permission to do it, we're good.
Okay.
And it all may be dictated by the state.
We may not have any control over it.
Yeah.
The bathroom thing will be the state, the health department
Yeah,
will be.
they may have a
controlling
max
that.
cap of how many you can even have in your
Yeah.
building, right?
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay, administrator's report, we got part of it. Or is that pretty much all
Yeah,
of
let me
it?
get back to that here. There's a number of issues in there. I've been tracking, the state, for example, where they're looking at with their revenue, and it has been a I would say pretty dramatic drop off in their revenue. You know, the, state looks like it's probably gonna be tapping the rainy day fund pretty heavily this year. So as I said, I think this year, I'm optimistic about the LGA, but next year is really probably what we need to be really cognizant of, because we could certainly see a cut, a pretty substantial cut there. And we also may see some of this being paid late. You know, typically, as Nancy mentioned, we see our revenues come in June, July, and then in December again. Well, state may say, we just don't have the money yet, we'll give you a quarter in June and a quarter in September, and, you know, as it comes in, we'll pay it. So, I mean, we have to be, that's why keeping that liquidity with some of our other funds is gonna be essential. Other than that, I mean, I talked about the employee redeployment. Library service was restarted, which, you know, I'm really glad of, because, once again, that's a department where it's very hard to, if they're not providing service to the public, it's very hard to justify the hours, to be honest with you. They have a lot of summer projects. Right now, we don't know how that's gonna work. The library board will be talking about how their summer reading goes. They've got usually some big events. How is that gonna go? I don't know. I'm kinda leaving it to them to make some recommendations. Yeah, I think that's the bulk of it. And then the credit card reader at the police department, that was just an item that came up, and talking with Nancy, with a number of transactions, I think we both feel it may not be warranted at this time. So, I think right now, we're recommending just keeping what we have. They don't have that many payments, and the cost of those are substantial. However, we are looking potentially in the future at looking at instituting policies here where more than just the utility bills could be taken electronically, and we could do some of that too. We can talk about that at some point. So, those housing demos were completed. I mean, I drove past both of them, and I think there's some site cleanup, which I know Ronnie talked about. They'll be doing a little bit more cleanup, although I think the sites both look pretty good. Especially over on 34 here, that one there's some trees and some brush we'll be cleaning out. Other than that, you know, I'd take any questions anybody has. See, there's one or a couple other things I was gonna throw. Oh, one thing I was gonna note is we do have the ability to use the go-to meeting format for free, which is, it's kind of like Zoom or that sort of a thing. So through our electrical utility relationship, we can utilize that for free. So if the council would like to, or feels it's prudent to utilize that, we certainly can, and we can do some training and get it set up. I went through training on Monday, and I felt like it was very user-friendly. So just so you know, you need to have your electronic device, you know, you have your computer or whatever, but other than that, I think it's better than Zoom, it's safer. So if you'd like to look at utilizing that, please let me know. And then, you know, it won't be any cost to us, which is great, and it serves up to 250 people, so we should be covered.
Okay. Thanks, Tim, appreciate it. The engineers report, number one. Perfect.
Three things tonight, Mayor and Council. I'll go kind of the first two together, are part of our 2020 street improvement budgeted items. The first one being the crack filling. In your council packet is a map there showing where we're looking at crack filling, bid tabulation, and ultimately a resolution asking the council to enter into contract with Sparner for just over $50,000 there. The second item is our chip sealing. So when we usually do streets, we like to crack fill those of the cracks in the street, get those filled up, and then chip over the top of them. So you might see a lot of related areas there. That ultimately is a $150,000 project that was budgeted there. The bid came in at about $103,000 for Pearson Brothers. So by passing the resolution, we'd be entering a contract with Pearson Brothers. A couple big ticket items there. You can see on the map that we have 16th Street in our Main Street project. After we chip seal that, we would be restriping those roadways. If you've noticed or driven those streets, the pavement markings that have been deteriorated, something that's been on our list to do for a while. Charlie and myself have talked about these projects for a while. We delayed them a couple of years with some adjacent development, so we kind of got them on the projects here this year. If you add those up between the budget items and where the bids are, it's about $46,000 less than what we had budgeted. Based on the conversations today, I'm assuming the council, if we approve these contracts, we would be looking at sticking within that budgeted amount. In the past, you've directed myself and the staff to increase the areas of our work there to ultimately get to our budgeted number if we were short. But that would be something I'd be interested in the city's discussion or direction based on the bids coming in less than what we were anticipating or budgeted. So with that said, there's two resolutions for your consideration. So.
Okay. Any questions for Brandon on that? Okay, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the resolution awarding the crack filling to Farner Asphalt Sealers for $50,070.
So moved.
Thanks, Dwayne. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Lonnie, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. And we have the resolution to award the 2020 chip sealing to Pearson Brothers for $103,663.50. Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan, do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mel, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. And then as far as the crack filling came in right at budget, which is great. This came in about 46 and change less.
Correct.
I'm of the mind to just recommend that we leave that where it's at.
Mhm.
We've got a lot of things coming up that we don't know where it's gonna go, so.
And keep it
Unless,
for-
unless there's something that has, with the frost coming out here in the last couple of weeks, that you said, oh, there's a canyon or whatever that's gotta be fixed.
Yeah, I think the other thing that the budget this is coming out of, myself and the street department and public works, works on the different street maintenance that we complete. Obviously, these are two of the three different things, the other one being the staff patching. So with the reallocation of staff, maybe we look at, if we do need to do some more patching, then that might eat into that $46,000 that we've tried to save there.
But we don't need to do any more sealing or crack filling.
And we could always
Well.
do more, but, with these times, I think that would be the prudent recommendation, so.
I mean, to me, it makes sense to stick with this partly, and I would even initially, I thought, well, maybe we should just put this off, but it was already delayed 1 year. So I thought, well, okay, this was already scheduled for last year, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
We should probably get it done now,
Yeah.
because it makes sense.
Yep.
And I really do wanna get the patching, I mean, I wanna get ahead on that, because I've had a number of questions about it, so. Not questions, so I'll put it nicely.
Concerns?
Questions.
Yeah, that's it, concerns, very good.
Sounds better that way.
Good way to put that, questions. All right, thanks, Brandon, appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Third item tonight, 16th Street Northeast improvements. They are actually looking at starting that project here potentially even Saturday, so we're gonna be shooting out an email here to some of the residents. There's gonna be a road closure there. We're working with some of the local farmers there, regarding that, so just a quick heads up on that project. As part of that project, myself and the city administrator were approached, from a developer, ultimately looking at developing some property potentially to the east of this, not necessarily immediately, but in the coming years. So then that kind of spurred a discussion on, do we look at incorporating anything on the 16th Street project to accommodate that? That's where this is coming from ultimately. It's in our urban growth area. It was kind of in the long-term growth, so we didn't really plan for it. But now that the developer has purchased the land, I think it's gonna bring that development forward. So what we're looking at is two things. We've called them change order number 1 and change order number 2. Change order number 1 will likely be funded through our municipal state aid resources that we have that is funding this project in addition to that grant we got from MnDOT. Change order number 2 would be funded likely by the water utility. Change order number 1 includes adding additional curb and gutter. So when we cut that first hill down at the Holtz property there, we had to add some curb and gutter on the north side of the roadway because we kind of lost our ability to grade a ditch in there. What we'd be doing is extending that curb and gutter to the west, kind of back into town, to hook up to the curb and gutter on 16th Street, to accommodate grading the north side of that roadway, which was gonna be left as a rural section, grading a trail in there for a future trail extension to connect into this potential development to the east. So again, that's something that we talked about with the developer. Developer thought that was a good value to their development to include that trail, would be likely something that they would include in that development. So we're looking at accommodating this street construction to ultimately accommodate that trail. So when we do that, we need to add that curb and gutter, add some more filling in there. Same thing as you kind of go east down the hill, fill that ditch and extend that curb and gutter so we can get that trail in there within our current right-of-way. So the cost of item number 1 I've negotiated with the contractor is $38,600. That's again for the grading the curb and gutter, and that would be fundable through our municipal state aid or likely funded. The second item is the short water main extension there. You can see at the start of the project, our current 16th Street where the pavement ends now, there's a water hydrant there. That end of that water line is underneath the roadway, so I'd like to get on to that water main extended outside the roadway, again, to accommodate that future water main extension to the east for the potential development to
So we
the
ain't
east.
tearing up the roadway.
So we're not tearing open 16th Street again, closing down 16th Street, have a settlement there. Which you can see we have some settlements down on 16th Street we're touring, and we talked about other developments near the school. So again, that's a pretty small project of $9,000, the number that we worked out with the contractor. So looking for your direction here tonight and probably a motion to approve these change orders. It's a little different change order, so I guess the motion would be for myself to be authorized to include the 2 change orders with the contractor and ultimately with the state aid group that we get their money from. So again, item number 1 is $38,600. Item number 2 is 9,000, so.
And item number 1's MSAS dollars, and item number 2 would be our water fund.
Presumably, yes.
Okay.
So, we obviously worked this out with Public Works.
Sure.
And here we are making the recommendation to move forward with the change order.
Seems like a no-brainer to do it now than try to do it later. It's gonna cost more, plus you're gonna have more potential problems with the road.
Yep, and we talked about this with the developer too, from an engineering standpoint, so he appreciated the city making this ultimate investment, you know, to get our water in place and get our curb and gutter and get that grading in place for them to come in and, build that trail in there, so I think that'll help us when the developer comes forward with his development on this trail cost and who pays it and outside the project area, so I think we're doing the good first step from an engineering standpoint, but also a discussion with the developer too. I think it'll help things out, so.
Okay, thanks, Brandon. Any other questions for Brandon? Okay, I'll entertain a motion
I'll make that motion
to...
to do
Do
change
what?
order 1 and 2, to move forward with that.
Okay, do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Lonnie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Brandon.
That's it.
Appreciate that.
And I'll have to answer any other questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Personnel, attorney's report, so we're gonna go into closed session to get an update on the Wilker litigation. We have a